Good afternoon. Ooh, that works great. Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome to the second General Plan Advisory Committee meeting. We have established quorum both in person and online. As you know, these are advisory committee meetings rather than standard committee meetings, so these are not bound by the Brown Act. But in order to proceed kind of like normal as everybody expects, we're very excited that we do have a quorum today. In a moment, we will take roll for our committee members. But also, first, let's just bring your attention to the agenda review. We have two important things to discuss today, and before that, we're going to give an update regarding happenings since the first General Plan Advisory Committee, or GPAC, meeting took place. The two important things that we really are looking for input from everybody in attendance today is the General Plan Overview document, as well as the key countywide elements policy issues. So this key issues document was derived from the input that we received at the first set of the local area plan community workshops. It'll be discussed today by the GPAC, and the information that we gain today from today's meeting, both from the GPAC and the public, will then help to inform our second series of local area plan workshops, both for local area plan information as well as for general plan element information. With that, I will go ahead and let's see. I wanted to take a moment actually to thank the members of the General Plan Advisory Committee for looking at these documents ahead of time and sending in your written comments, because it's very helpful for us to capture the information. So I wanted to thank everyone for taking the time to do that. And with that, I will hand it over to our PlaceWorks support staff. They are present online and will cover the project updates since the first GPAC meeting. We have, I think, Tanya and Andrea, but they might surprise me, so. Betsy has a hand up.
We're going to need to elevate Andrea and Tanya to panelists.
Yep, we've gotten that done. That sounds like Terry.
Yeah, this is Tammy with PlaceWorks.
Oh, Tammy. Hey, great.
Great, thank you.
Thanks. All right. I also want to give a special thanks to Sam Houston, who is doing a lot of tech coordinating in the back and make sure that everything works today. So thank you, Sam.
Maria?
Yes, Betsy.
Yeah, I think you said you were going to do a roll call. And also, there are people sitting at the dais. I do know that's Chief Duncan sitting there, but the visual is not good enough for me to see who all the people are at the dais. Could you please let us know who all the members of the GPAC committee are that are in attendance, please?
I'd be happy to. Thank you. So members who are up on the dais, why don't you just wave when I call your name? And that way everybody attending remotely will be able to kind of have a feel for who's in our room today. Representing the Fire District, we have Paul Duncan. Homeowners Association, we have Phil Hartley. We keep going. Conventional Agriculture, we have Sharon Zoller. Member at Large for District 5, we have April Lieferman. Did you wave? I missed it. Okay, good. And then Member at Large for District 4, we have Margot Calmbara. Those are the committee members that are present in person. Sam, if you wouldn't mind letting me know if the Zoom attending committee members kind of wave or make some sort of sign, or if you even see their name, that'll work. How about for Water District? Do you see Ben Murphy?
Ben's here.
Awesome. Senior Support Services, Betsy Kahn.
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. Tribal Representative, Kyle Bill. Okay. Education, we have Marty Ehrberg. And I totally just took a chance on pronouncing her last name correctly. I'll get that figured out next time. Arberg? Arberg. Thank you very much. Environmental group, we have Donna Makowitz.
Good afternoon.
Great. Business Association, we have Seifert Weston. He was here earlier, so hopefully he'll be back. Cannabis industry, we have Carolyn Hillman. Oh, you're Carolyn. Nice to meet you. Feel free to take a seat anywhere you like. We can get you on microphone. Awesome. Member at Large District 1, Daniel Terrell.
I am here. Can you hear me?
Thank you. Member at Large District 3, Denise Rushing.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Member at Large District 2, Fawn Williams. All right, very good. Thank you, Betsy, for reminding me. I will now turn it over to our support team online for the project updates since the first GPAC meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Maria. I just want to point out I don't have the ability to turn on video, so I'm not sure if that's a setting that we should change, but just pointing that out. And I'm going to introduce Andrea Howard from Placeworks, who's going to deliver the presentation of project updates.
Good afternoon, everyone. Are you able to hear me? Yes. I just logged in here. I think I'm now set, and you should be able to see my screen. Thank you, Mireya and GPAC members for having us here. It's really nice to be back with you all today. To start the presentation, I am going to first go over a couple of updates since we last met as a group. There we go. Starting with the survey. You may remember, hopefully from participating yourselves, that we conducted a survey that launched in May to gather input on priorities and concerns to inform the general plan update. And big thanks to county staff and AmeriCorps fellows, we received a really exceptional number of responses, over 700 on this community survey. On the screen, we have some highlights about where participation was highest, in addition to areas where we can better focus our efforts for future outreach. In reviewing the responses, we're considering these both countywide and those received by LAP, and we'll be using that information that looking at through both of those lenses to inform future outreach and the general plan. If you are interested in seeing a complete summary of responses received, please visit the project website, lakecounty2050.org. In April and March of this year, we held 9 workshops at the LAP level. Those brought together more than 150 community members to discuss local assets and challenges, potential land use changes, and other topics to inform the next round of outreach and the general plan. Summaries for these meetings are also available on the project website now. I encourage you to check those out. And in May, we also convened the first of 3 planned stakeholder focus group meetings for the general plan. This first one was dedicated to the topic of environmental justice. In this virtual meeting, we heard from folks from a variety of backgrounds and discussed which areas of the county might be appropriate to designate as equity priority communities. This is the term we're using for those where we'll be focusing our environmental justice policy efforts. We also discussed issues impacting these communities, potential policy approaches to address the issues, and how to connect with these communities. The summary of those, that discussion is also available now on our project website, and we'll be taking those learnings into the next phases of outreach. Changing gears just a little bit here, we want to take a moment to introduce you all to a separate but complementary effort to the general plan update with the launch of the Housing Action and Implementation Plan, or HAIP. This will be a comprehensive manual with concrete action steps to address current and forecasted housing demand for all of Lake County. So not just the unincorporated areas, but also the 2 incorporated cities. Components of the HAIP will serve as foundational to the housing element, and it will also support a more thoughtful planning process to future housing than the typical housing element timeline allows for. So it's a really great complement to your next housing element, and ultimately it will work to expedite housing production. It may also inform some land use changes that we make here in the general plan now. So again, they're not the same project, but there is a lot of overlap. And with that in mind, we are coordinating our engagement activities between the general plan and the HAIP so that community members will have an opportunity to inform the HAIP in upcoming general plan engagement activities. All right, and next I'm going to take a couple of minutes just to talk about the general plan overview document that was shared with you all in your agenda packet. This document will ultimately serve as the introductory chapter to your updated general plan. The key role for this document is to reorient or orient readers to how the plan is organized, including how the LAPs will now be part of the general plan itself. Other contents include details on the county's history and an overview of general plan law and the current general plan and LAPs. At the conclusion of the project, we'll also add information on how the project engaged with the community to develop the plan. So this graphic, it's included in the chapter itself. This illustrates how the contents of the general plan will be organized and hopefully helps to clarify which chapters will be included as countywide elements and which will be tailored for each local planning area in the LAPs. And while this might not feel all that different in practice for you all who are really used to using your LAPs, this move to fully integrate the LAPs into the general plan is a significant shift at a policy level from the current relationship of the LAPs to the general plan. It will eliminate any redundancies between the documents and put the LAPs on equal footing. And most importantly here now, your general plan includes the LAPs. The LAPs are the general plan, and they have the same weight policy-wise and enforcement to oversee all activities and inform all other activities across the community. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Mireya to facilitate discussion here.
Thank you, Andrea. So the first part, does the committee have any questions regarding the project updates since our first GPAC meeting? Are there any questions from the public? The microphone at the front will remain live, so if you wouldn't mind, if you do have questions, to just please make them over at the microphone. If we have no questions, we'll move on to the, oh, yes, thank you. Michelle's watching the Zoom room. Go ahead, Betsy.
Yes, thank you very much. During the week, since you sent out the documents, I know that there have been comments submitted to you just in the last couple of days. I'm wondering how those will be addressed in this discussion here, and you know, will there be a question and answer period at the end where we can add questions about this when you're done?
When you mean, first I'll address the first question. We have collected and are retaining the comments that were sent to us in writing. Feel free to also reiterate those comments since we did not have time to actually distribute them to the entire committee or post them online. I'm hoping you'll speak to some of them if the opportunity arises or if you'd like to do so. Did you mean questions or comments on the project updates themselves, or do you mean for our following agenda items?
No, on the specific general plan overview.
Oh, great.
I know that other comments were submitted regarding how the language would be maybe improved, and that was just in the last couple or 3 days.
Yes. All written comments that have been sent in are taken in for consideration. So we will read those and use them and apply them as comments from the committee.
When?
Well, we can have a verbal discussion today.
I'm trying to follow the process here, you present the overview a couple of days before the meeting. People respond and say, gee, this, we'd like to see more of this or less of that. I know you haven't had time to modify those for today's presentation, but how will those be handled in the near future? I mean, is there a way to continue that conversation with you on this?
Yes.
Great.
So as these have come in over the last few days, I have forwarded them to our support team. Michelle is, while we take the questions from the GPAC, Michelle is going to retrieve those and we'll make sure we read them into the record so that they are part of our discussion.
Oh, that would be
Unless
sweet.
you have
Thank
a
you.
copy of your email that you would like to present the highlights on as well. Sharon?
I'm just wondering, is it possible?
Oh, yeah.
Is it possible, if there wasn't many pages of comments, that you work through them for those of us who obviously haven't seen all of them, but we may say, oh yes, that's a great idea. Why didn't I think of that? Or benefit by your response to other folks' questions that have come in. Is that possible?
Certainly. Would the committee prefer that we take a moment to retrieve those briefly and read them into the record as a start, or would we like to take any questions that we may have?
I see some heads yesing.
Excellent. Betsy, we're going to take a moment and make sure we get those now. And then we'll be right back and we'll start with covering the written comments. So I think if I remember correctly, we have written comments from Denise and Sharon, Betsy, but those were a while ago about or was those were different ones, right? Yeah. We're going to take a break till I know what I'm talking about, and we're going to be right back. All right. Okay, we are back now at 2:06 p.m. for when we're taking notes later. I want to thank Betsy for making the very good points regarding the committee members who took time to send in your written comments. We do want to make sure that we pay close attention to those. So during our break, staff did run upstairs and get the printed copies, which were of course printed almost completely wrong and not collated. So she came back down, we got it all squared away. It was also forwarded to the task force so that the people attending remotely should have received those emails. And I am not keeping track of chat. And in the future, when I receive member or committee member comments, I will make sure that not only do I forward it to our internal support team, our internal team, but I will also forward it to all GPAC committee members. So we'll all stay on the same page going forward. But I do appreciate everybody hanging in there with us while we took a break to get all on the same page. And now what we'd like to do, Betsy, I'm going to give you the floor to address your first two emails. And then Margot's is still in the process of getting copied and distributed. So we'll have Margot speak to her email afterwards.
Oh my goodness. Well, I had input on the issues themselves as presented because I feel that there were some important issues that were left out, specifically the law enforcement and first responders.
Betsy, sorry to jump in, but we are on the general plan overview document. So if you had comments that were specific to that one, I want to make sure we capture your key issues comments when we get to that topic.
I don't think I responded to the overview. I responded to the issues.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. Margot, did you have any comments in your email specific to the general plan overview document?
I did, but I gave my hard copy away to get copied. Okay. So this is kind of tough to go from the top of my head.
No kidding. Yes. Why don't we take another moment, because they're coming down any second now. We will go into the Zoom room where Denise Rushing has a hand up. Go ahead, Denise.
Right. So would you like to hear what my email is going to say? Because I have not sent it yet.
I think that's a great idea. Why don't we go ahead and get started with that?
Okay. It's on the general plan overview. My first question is, it seems to me we have a lot in the overview introduction and the background and the setting, but what's missing there is a statement of values, which I think would be super valuable. Just as a tiebreaker, if anything, when people are considering, options as they're looking at policies down the road, as they look at the general plan. Specifically, I had one question and a few comments. The question is, there were a number of human-to-human issues, outside economic factors, trafficking, law enforcement, illegal activities were frequently mentioned in the general plan outreach meetings, and I'm not sure where these are going to be addressed in the general plan. I think it's under health and safety, but it seems that any new development, obviously, we have to consider the expansion of the services that are needed, but there is a definite public input on the services that are falling short, they feel. So somewhere that has to be addressed. As far as, let's see, no other questions. My comments are very specifically under introduction, insert the word could foster a thriving agricultural base. It's not, while in the past we've had a thriving agricultural base, I think most people in farming right now would say that we are struggling a bit. So I would insert the word could.
Could you tell us where?
That's in the introduction of the statement of value of the.
I'm in background. Okay.
Of the general plan overview.
I'm on the wrong thingy. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Under the background, in the setting portion, we talk about the dominant geographic features. I think we should add when we say that Clear Lake dominates the county, I think we should add in partner Mount Kanata. It's the most dominant geographic feature in the county, and it's iconic. It's beloved. It's seen everywhere around the lake, and it's sacred to the tribes and very special to residents. It also might be appropriate to mention the volcanic region, which does create the geothermal resources and thus the need for a geothermal plan. Under the background tribal history, I concur with the comments from Dr. John Parker, which I think you're going to be sharing. Under the background of county history, there's a grammatical correction that needs to be made where we talk about the population has reached 58,300 countywide and 40,400 in the unincorporated county. That it implies that we have almost 100,000 people. That's not the case. So I would replace "and" with 400,400 of those. So just correct the grammar there. Under general plan overview hazards, we should probably insert flooding in describing the hazards. And then under the general plan overview, Lake County 2050 general plan, the health and safety, again, we talk about geology there, flooding, wildfire. We should probably mention invasive species, tree mortality, health outbreaks, and cyanobacteria blooms specifically, because those are the most prevalent challenges that are obvious to everyone. Let's see. And then finally, at the end, under the subsection list, I have two final comments. One is under agricultural resources. We talk about agricultural resources, setting policies to protect and sustain local agriculture. I think we should add the phrase while still protecting and conserving our environment. And I do feel, it's particularly with Bruno, but we should emphasize food sources somehow. And then finally, we mentioned in industry, commerce or commercial and industry, and it might be good to call out services in particular, just to mention the word, or just even say goods and services. And that's it for me.
On your reference to addressing food sources, are you talking about Chair Sabatier's effort regarding sustainable food policy?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And I missed that last location of industry. Could you remind me?
Yeah, let me pull it up. Hold on, I just closed the document, sadly. Let's see, the section on economic development under the list of, at the very end. Mm-hmm. Under economic development, we mentioned complementary commercial industrial enterprises. Might just indicate goods and services. So we can call out services, because I think we have a possibility for a very strong service economy as well.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks.
Question about,
Sharon, you're going to need to get the microphone back.
Under agricultural resources, where you make a comment about food source.
One moment, Sharon. I still don't hear you.
Better?
There you go.
The food sources, you referenced Bruno's sustainable food policy. I don't know that everybody's familiar with that. Mm-hmm. And so
well, what I'm thinking that's
we just have one sentence there in this particular document. It's agricultural resources sets policies to protect and sustain local agriculture as an economic driver. And we mentioned the word food source. Just emphasize that, because I do think there's going to be significant effort on local food and local food policy. And we probably need an umbrella policy consideration in the general plan.
Would you recommend the addition of the word local in front of food source?
Yes.
Sharon, are you in the committee amenable to that?
Yeah, I think that's fine. I would like to, and I'll have to, I guess, do it on my own, but I would like to know what the sustainable food policy, has it been adopted?
No.
No. In fact, if you can probably get a presentation of it, the very last, on Facebook, at the last Sierra Club public meeting, we recorded Bruno giving a presentation about what he's thinking in terms of introduction. It hasn't even been introduced to the board yet.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, so it'd be good to, you could You can get his presentation there, and I think he probably has given it elsewhere as well.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Denise. Were there any further comments from or questions from the GPAC regarding the general plan overview document? In the room we'll start with, and then we'll take a look on Zoom. Go ahead, Phil.
Oh, I had just wanted to second the addition of some more geographic features to the area that calls out Clear Lake. The reader might well imagine like Mojave Lake, this lake out in the desert. No, we're not like that. I think that what makes it spectacular is that the lake is surrounded by mountains, with a particular emphasis on our volcanic mountains. They are volcanoes, and as someone mentioned rightly so, that the term Konocti is really part and parcel of our county culture at all levels. So deserves a place in there.
Super. Thank you. I know that when most of our department staff gets on Zoom, we all have backgrounds that all of them have Mount Konocti and the lake, or most, yeah, but definitely the mountain, or the volcano. Anyone else in person? If not, we'll see if we have any committee member comments on Zoom. Margot, we're still on general plan overview. Oh, your general plan overview?
Uh-huh.
Oh, because we have your stuff now. Awesome. Okay. So Donna, we'll get to you in just a moment. We're going to have Margot give the highlights of her email. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Well, my comment on the general plan overview echoes Ms. Rushing's suggestion to incorporate a statement about values guiding the general plan. What I have here is, for general plan overview, consider adding a declaration of values as guiding principles for decisions affecting a general plan required element. If the general plan is considered to be the county's constitution, then its preamble, a declaration of values, identifying high-level guiding principles such as Vision 2028 could be useful. County decision makers should take the general plan declaration of values and Vision 2028 priorities into account when making decisions, such as reviewing minor/major use permits for a required element, for example, land use. A rough example of declaration of values follows. Now, this is going to be tough because I color-coded all the phrases that come from the Vision 2028, and it's hard to distinguish that orally. Okay, so here goes. Lake County considers the well-being and economic resilience of every Lake County resident. To enhance public safety and develop and maintain a high standard of disaster prevention, preparedness, and recovery, Lake County embraces conservation and stewardship of its natural resources to protect residents and avoid disasters, such as groundwater supply depletion, exacerbated by discretionary land uses. An agricultural county, Lake County strives to eliminate food insecurity of its residents, bolstering the economic resilience of every Lake County resident. While Lake County celebrates the family farm and small artisanal farms, especially as a means of food resiliency, the county welcomes a diverse agricultural base. As part of its focused economic development, including agriculture, the county promotes sustainable growth and conservation of natural resources. Stewardship of natural resources such as water and trees fortifies the county's efforts to market Lake County as a premier California outdoor recreational destination. With resources in high demand and limited availability, such as water, the county favors activities that generate higher yield return on resource investment. In addition, natural resources stewardship preserves the inheritance of Lake County's children and future county residents to enjoy the beauty of the county's rural and wooded setting. So that's just the rough language. So returning to the big picture, calling out the general plan declaration of values can be a convenient tool, a rubric, for county decision makers when making decisions affecting a general plan required element, such as land use. Now, if it turns out that the GPAC chooses not to go that route, I suggest that at a minimum, the required elements goals should reflect Vision 2028 values to guide decision makers. For example, agricultural resources goal number 2 could be revised to reflect aspirational values. Quote, to promote a diverse, healthy, then add sustainable, return to the regular text, and competitive agricultural industry, and then add new language, that provides livable wages within the county, end quote. And so that's what I have for concerning general plan. Tell me when in the agenda we talk about comments on the issues document that was distributed, and also in the organization of materials.
Hypothetically, we were scheduled to start talking about the issues at 2:15. However, I sort of put it, making us run a little late. So, but let's continue with this because it's important that the GPAC input and public input be heard on the general plan overview document. So I want to make sure that we really gather as much input as is available to us today. So I thank you very much for that. Is there anyone else in the room who wants to address anyone else on the committee in the room who wants to address the general plan overview? If not, we will go on to Donna in Zoom. Go ahead, Donna.
I see Betsy had her hand up. It may be in regards to this, so maybe you should check with Betsy first.
No, I'd like to hear Donna's comments first.
Okay. For those that are in chambers, you probably have the printout, but online, I sent the tribal history summary to Dr. John Parker of Wolf Archaeological, and he pointed out some, I guess you would call it wording changes. He added, Maria, should I just talk about what he added or changed?
Yes, please. A highlight of that would be very helpful.
Okay. If you were reading along with me, he added, besides Pomo, Wapo, and Miwok, he added and Patwin. He changed for over 11,000 years to 20,000 years. And then he went on to the next sentence, with a Clear Lake population of 6,000 to 8,000 over what was printed was approximately 3,000 individuals. Before European, he added disease and colonization. They spoke 3 distinct, he changed the word language to dialects. And then it talked about renowned for their intricate basketry crafted from lakeshore. He said to just put sedge roots, redbud bark, and willow, and strike the tule grasses, native plants, and feathers. And then he added, for the past 6,000 years, the Clear Lake Pomo had permanent territory boundaries with political centers, private family land and resource ownership, a money economy, and professions, doctors, hunters, fishermen, basket makers, etc. And then further down, he added, he changed the word away from Indians. That's a derogatory term. He put people. So Lake County Pomo people are direct descendants, and again, changed 11,000 to 20,000 years. And any other place in the paragraph where it did say Indians, to strike that, such as Middletown Rancheria of Pomo, just get rid of the Indians. And at the end of the paragraph, he mentioned the Pomo, Robinson Rancheria Pomo, striking Indians, operate the Robinson Rancheria Resort and Casino, and the Khoi Nation has plans to establish a destination retreat with, where's it at?
Hotel and casino along one of the Pomo historic trail systems in Sonoma County?
That's it, yes. And then he also cited the bibliography, or if needed. And thank you for listening to my comments.
Awesome. Thank you. Does anybody else have their hand up? Oh, wait, we haven't done Betsy's yet, so let's get to Betsy. Go ahead, Betsy.
Thank you. I just want to go back to what Phil was talking about when he was when you mentioned the mountains and that sort of thing. The fact is that the more than half of the land is owned by federal agencies, which provide our forests, actually provide profound water supplies to the surrounding counties, and are considered to be headwaters. We're a county of origin, and I don't think that's mentioned anywhere that I can recall. So it's not just the mountains; it's the actual forest and the natural resource that is, what creates the watershed. If there's some way to just add that in there, I'm not sure exactly how, but I do want to acknowledge what Phil was saying, that this is more than just the lake and the agriculture. Thank you.
Thank you. Was there anything else that you wanted to? The rest of it was for key issues, or was there anything else for general plan overview, Betsy?
No, I'm only, the next thing would be key issues.
Super. Okay. Thank you very much. There are no further hands raised in the Zoom room. Let's move on to questions from the public regarding general plan overview document. Seeing no one, are there any hands in Zoom raised? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to GPAC discussion and comments. What I have gotten so far, just to see if we're all on the same page, is a statement of values to be added based on input from Denise's email, or her reading of what her email was going to be, and Margot's email. So an addition of statement of values in there. Secondly, including in our geographic resources, emphasis on Mount Konocti and our thermal resources. And then in tribal history, and including the mountains. And then in tribal history, modifying what's currently there to reflect Dr. Parker's input. Is there anything else that the committee would like to discuss or comment on? If there's nothing additional, go ahead, Carolyn.
I'm not sure where it was. I can't find it. But when we list the agriculture, like, there's the pears, there's the viticulture, we have the cannabis operations. If we can incorporate those different things that have been historically important to this county, include those in there as part of, we say agriculture, but agriculture can mean different things for many people in different counties. So.
Indeed. Okay. So an inclusion of a list of important agricultural crops through history in Lake County?
Yeah, I don't remember seeing pears. I know pears were important.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be an extensive list, but things
Right.
that have been important.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so we'll add that to the list. Yes.
There is a hand from one of our GPAC members in the Zoom room, but we hadn't had him escalated to a panelist, so now
Whoops. Okay, great.
it's Kyle Bill.
Ah, wonderful. Go ahead, Kyle.
Sorry, I'm having a lot of issues. I was trying to raise my hand for a little bit, but sorry for being late. We're in ceremony right now, and so it's busy getting ready for that. But I did want to mention a couple of comments around the document. I do want to maybe take opportunity to maybe get some feedback from the tribes, because one of the things that I wanted to look for is to ensure that we're not talking in the past tense around like land stewardship, because our tribes are still actively doing those things. A lot of times the history of tribal people is always talked in the past tense and never in the contemporary as well. So just wanting to make sure that we balance that. Also, I think listing a couple of the tribe's casino economic development, businesses. I think it would be important to list the other tribes that have casinos as well. Habe Matalal has the Running Creek, and also Big Valley has Konocti. And then the last part that I would, I do agree with some of Mr. Parker's input. I think those are really good feedback. But I would also perhaps in there mention about some of the larger landmarks that play a pivotal role in tribal communities, like the lake, in incorporating some language into that. We can, we look at the park in Lakeport as Habaten, which is the big water. So I think that would be a nice way to incorporate some of the names traditionally for these landmarks that we still talk about today. Konokatai, the mountain, most people refer to as Kanaktai today, but just putting in there some historical names and proper pronunciations of these landmarks that we still refer to today. So that would be some of my input as far as that. And yeah, thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Okay, so then adding to the list for consideration and consensus from the committee would then also be making sure that we reword the reference to tribal stewardship of land to acknowledge that it is ongoing. And then made a good point that not all the casinos that we do have in Lake County, which are all very important for economic development, are listed, so we'll make sure we have a complete listing. And then modifying Dr. Parker's input on tribal history to reflect some of the tribal names and their pronunciations as items to highlight as far as our county assets and county valuable resources. Thank you, that was great. Okay, let's see. If there are no further questions, comments from the committee, we did public input, we brought it back. So, we also have Fawn Williams, who said she was trying to participate and can't. Do we see her on the list?
Kim, can you escalate Fawn to a panelist if she has not been yet?
Thank you, Fawn, for hanging in there and making sure we hear your input. There we go. Can you? Okay. Go ahead, Fawn. Kyle, I still see your hand up. I'm not sure if you had more you wanted to add, or maybe I got something wrong in the synopsis, but we'll get to you right after Fawn. Unless you're done, in which case, please just go ahead and lower your hand. Can we get Fawn unmuted?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes,
Well, we heard you for a second. Okay, Fawn, we'll take a moment. No, she's here.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Can you hear
Fawn.
me?
Yes.
Sorry. Okay. I agree with all of the feedback that has been presented so far. So I just wanted to, I have been here, I just haven't been able to participate for some reason, so.
Excellent. Thank you very much for letting us know. Consensus of the GPAC is really important as we move forward.
Okay.
We'll bring it back then to GPAC discussion and comments. Is there anything to be added other than what I have listed so far? Do we have, I'll be looking for consensus on these additions and amendments from the both, oh, Kyle's back. One moment. Go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, sorry, I did forget something in my first. The other thing is I've noticed a lot of maps when it comes to the county, a lot of the tribal lands are not listed. You know, all the communities and towns located throughout the lake are always listed. It'd be nice to see if you know, the tribal people being listed on those just to feel more a part of community, to be identified where those lands are located, their reservations in different areas. And even for elections, it's really nice during the election time for candidates to know which tribes resided in their districts and where the lands are located, because we've even had some folks not even know or ever been out to the reservations. So if there's a way that that might be appropriate here, then I would strongly advise that. If not, then it's fine. But I just wanted to express that.
Thank you. So adding to that list then is the identification of tribal lands on all of our general plan and appropriate local area plan maps. All right, so we're adding that to the list too. For our committee members in the room, was there any public comment on that last part? Excellent. Okay, moving back to the committee, I will be looking for hands raised if there is consensus on all of those items as mentioned. Or nodding, we're good. Excellent. And in the Zoom room, raise your hand if you are good. I don't have to say it again. Excellent. And we have consensus. We will integrate those amendments going forward. Let's take a quick time check.
Maria, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
My question is, oh, thank you. There were a couple of other emails that were submitted, and they were suggestions. We did not just vote that we accept all the emails.
No.
Okay.
You want me to, I can summarize again, just so we all know. It was only the list as I presented it to you, as I was scribbling down notes while people were talking.
Okay.
The emails also included feedback on the next topic on the agenda, which is the key issue. So we'll be discussing some of those items now.
Thank you.
Okay, we have one last request for public input on the general plan overview, I'm assuming. Go ahead, Mr. Waite. I see your hand raised, Bill. If you had comments, please go right ahead.
I agree with on the consensus thing. I wasn't able to, I had screwed up on my computer, so I'm sorry about that. So now I'm through and I can speak, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to our next one.
Sorry.
Oh, Fawn, did you have your hand up as a vote of
No.
approval? Yes, okay.
Well,
Phil.
on consensus, I'm not sure. Some of the wording that has been suggested, I'm not, for example, and these are small things, but the fact that one of our, tribal entities has plans in the future to build a casino in Sonoma County, I'm not sure that's a sentence that belongs in our general plan.
So let's go back, right, yeah, I can understand that too, because Donna, since you were the one who introduced Dr. Parker's comments, that was a sentence that may not be related to Lake County general plan policy. So,
I agree.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and modify comments that are specific to the Lake County general plan.
And, I don't want to, the length of time that Native American peoples have occupied this part of the nation is an ongoing discussion in archaeology, and have been a lot of more recent discoveries that have pushed the date, back significantly. I'm well aware that now we're talking about 20,000 years here in California. I'm just not sure about Lake County. It's a small matter. Who cares what you estimate, but I don't know.
We could make that reference vague rather than precise, so that it won't grab attention and controversy, which would detract us from the point of the general plan.
You could add some, I call it weasel language, like as long as, or up to, or
at least, or
potentially, or
probably more than, and so just so the group and the public understand going forward, the changes or the modifications are going to come back for review.
Okay.
So, yeah, so there will be time. I want to make sure that all of the input that we have received today, as well as input going forward, there will be time to review to see that your comments, make sure everything is reflected, and we will achieve consensus there. Okay. So we promised you we'd be out of here by 3:30. We have a little more than 45 minutes going. I vote we go ahead and get started with key issues, and we'll see how far we get. If we need to schedule another meeting just to make sure we've really vetted all of these, we can do so towards the end of today's meeting. Countywide Elements and Policy Issues Review. We did receive some written comments that we will start with. I think we will go back to Betsy.
Thank you, Maria. Now, first of all, may I ask, has my email been printed and distributed to all of the members of the people in the board, the committee members in attendance?
Yes, ma'am. Your email has been distributed in hard copy to those available or to those here. It has also been sent out to the GPAC members attending remotely.
Excellent, because I realize I really addressed a lot of issues in my comments. And I'm not sure that we would have time. I mean, even if I was to be able to read this, it's still an awful lot of comments. I am very, very concerned that we are not considering the impacts on the socioeconomic disadvantaged communities of the needs for first responders. Just give you an example, we have extremely limited advanced life support ambulances right now. We're in the middle of fire season. We haven't had the ability for some of our fire people to respond to the local fires. And these are crucial issues for us. As a person representing these senior support issues, of course, medical care, healthcare services, once again, these are all really significant to us. Our emergency preparedness, responses, power outages, master planning for evacuation, which is really focusing only on a small piece of the problem for emergency response. Cooling centers is just another little small part of the issues for the population for adapting to extreme weather conditions. Wildfire, the fact that over 50% of our housing stock was built before 1975, you can bring in all the NCO, people and do home hardening up there on Mount Conoctoy all you want, but that's not going to help the people in the North Shore for the most part. Insurance coverage, how much of our economic future is being impaired by the fact that we can't get insurance, and we can't get insurance because we can't do home hardening, and we can't do home hardening because we have old houses. And these things are all kind of cascading aspects. Then you have this significant percentage of older adults that are low income, very low income. The Director of Social Services in the budget hearings a couple of weeks ago explained for the second year in a row that over half the population of the county is dependent upon Medi-Cal, including some of the employees in the county government. Again, I don't want to, just take up your time with this. I will highlight a couple of things, which are our water resources. We have a very difficult problem with our water system, our permitting for water resources, which I sent a separate email about in terms of our planning process, and not managing our groundwater that is so crucial to us. Floodplain management, our outdated ordinances, and so forth. Agricultural resources, I think it's great. I've heard several different comments about the very important food and fiber categories for agriculture that are priorities. And then I also wanted to add some recognition of our public services that we have boards, committees, commissions, councils, and task forces that basically are dependent totally on volunteers and volunteer resources. They don't have any institutional memory of all the work that they've done, and so when you come to make decisions, such as recently there was a discussion about the cyanobacteria toxins, it was pretty obvious that Supervisor Sabatier had no idea what the Clean Water Program itself was about, and that's been around for almost 40 years. So these are the concerns that I have. We need multi-agency networking for all of the master planning processes. We're getting there with the natural hazard mitigation plan, which in the next iteration will include the cities, but for watershed management, healthcare resources, and public facilities, we need a record management system that preserves those institutional reports and things that we've already invested lots of money in, but people don't know about. So thanks. That's just my summary, and I'll leave you with this list here to consider.
Thank you, Betsy. I do appreciate this list because it does identify a number of different areas, both that will be reflected both in the general plan elements as well as probably the shoreline communities area plan as well, which does encompass our North Shore. Go ahead, Paul.
I did not see the information that Betsy was referencing in the emails we have.
Did you have an email that's dated June 26th? It's a 4-pager.
I have one that is, it gives the Dr. Parker's summation, but she talked about several other things that weren't in that.
4 pages, we only got 3.
One moment, we have a copier issue. Technical difficulties, we'll be right back. We do have that here, so we're going to get that distributed to you.
Thank you.
And keep in mind, even though 3:30 was when we said we would adjourn, it's more important that we get this done correctly, so we will take the time it requires. What? Yes, Phil?
Well, I was just going to say, as the list was being read, I noticed that many of the issues, if not most, are listed on the General Plan Advisory Committee key topics list.
Great.
Thank you. There were 2 from that same date. There were 2 emails from the same date.
So there should be 3 that look like they're from Betsy, but one was relaying Margot's and.
One moment. Thank you. All right, so we'll give everybody a moment to actually get the correct material. Sorry, Betsy, I was mistaken when I said yes, we all had it.
Well, that's okay. And basically what I did was I disagreed with the generalizations that Mr. Hartley just referred to. I mean, yes, the topics are named, but I don't think that they describe what I perceive as the issues after 25 years of serving the senior population here.
New bullet item, law enforcement. Okay.
Groundwater management.
Let's take a look. I'm going to give everybody a moment to review this. Also, additionally, while we're reviewing this, perhaps a little bit of background information would be helpful. This list of key issues for the countywide general plan elements was derived through the short survey that we had in the beginning, as well as the input that was received in the local area plan workshops. So some of the input we received from those workshops was routed over into specific local planning area key issues, but others resonated countywide and would be more appropriate or to have been highlighted here for the countywide elements. So if you're picturing that diagram that we had, on one of our slides with the left-hand side being the countywide elements and the right-hand side being the local area plan elements, these are key issues that are specific to the left-hand side, the countywide elements. Oh, there's a lot of silence at the moment as we're giving everyone a chance to review a 4-page email. So let me tell you about my day. No, just kidding. As soon as I see eyes back on me, it's an old substitute teacher trick, then I'll know we're ready to proceed.
Maria, may I add a comment here?
Please, Betsy.
There is no specific element that deals with the issues of population needs, of which seniors are a significant percentage, low-income seniors. I can introduce aspects of each of the elements and describe how that affects those particular groups of people and the services that they need. But the fact is that there's no area specific to the population that we're talking about here.
Correct. Yeah, that is a county-wide issue. And so the senior population has been identified as a disadvantaged community or a sensitive population. And so we will actually address those issues in our local area plans specific to the environmental justice part. So yes, I think that Betsy, your points and how they are appropriate and how they connect and intersect with our senior population's needs is going to be a theme that's going to resonate throughout all of the local area plans, as well as the environmental justice element that has been required by state law to be included in our next general plan update.
Well, all I'm saying is that there are levels of need that are above and beyond the scope of a local area plan. Emergency services, first responders, fire protection districts, law enforcement. These are county level systems. They're not something that a given community can do anything about.
Indeed, and that is why they will also be addressed in the health and safety element, as well as be part of the countywide evacuation plan in our health and safety element. Oh, thank you for getting that slide back up. Awesome. Yeah, and public facilities and services also addresses that too. So you've hit on a number of points that are essential to general plan, both local and the general plan, the countywide elements.
Thank you.
One moment, Mr. Waite, we'll wait just for a moment to see if we have any comments from the committee members in person and then on Zoom, and then we'll get to public input. So one moment, we'll be right with you. Okay. At this point, then, for Betsy's comments, if it's amenable to the committee, I would like to take her various points into consideration with our support team and make sure that they are reflected in all of the various appropriate areas in the local area plans, economic, environmental justice, as well as our health and safety, our public facilities. I think there are some in resources. So we're going to take all of these points and see where we need to make sure they're highlighted. Go ahead, April. Denise will be right with you.
Under agricultural resources, can you give clarity on the Williamson Act contracts?
Yes. The Williamson Act contracts started after World War II as a state program because so much of our prime ag soils were being plowed over and made into housing areas. And so we were losing what is a finite amount of arable prime ag soil. And so the state became very concerned about that and created this program called the Williamson Act, which is an agreement between a property owner, a local jurisdiction, which would be Lake County, and the state, which you enter into an agreement that implements restrictions on your development possibilities for ag land, which is where you can picture our orchards and tilling for ground crops. Later on, they also brought in rangeland, which is also important, which is where we get our cattle industry. And so that tri-part agreement is a recorded document, so it goes on the title, and it just signifies a recognition of a significantly lower property tax due to the conservation of these prime ag soils for agricultural purposes. In 2008, the state of California stopped paying subvention payments, which is how a lot of these local jurisdictions were able to make these Williamson Act agreements without losing property tax. The state would come in with subvention agreements and make the county whole. They stopped doing that in 2008, and subsequently, a number of jurisdictions in the county or in the state stopped accepting new Williamson Act contracts. Lake County stopped accepting Williamson Act contracts in 2012. And as well as that, we also did a series of audits of existing Williamson Act contracts to make sure that they were still being used for the purpose of the Williamson Act. And so a number of those in 2014 were put into a period of non-renewal, which is a 9-year period in which that parcel sort of goes up incrementally in tax until the 10th year when it's out of Williamson Act and it's restored back to market value. And Sharon can totally correct me if I got that wrong.
Good summary.
Thank you.
So I do have a question. Certainly Betsy put a lot of thought into all of her recommendations, but I'm looking under agricultural resources and some of the other areas which cross over as far as agriculture, and I think we can look at them, but I certainly have some questions about the statements, along with some of the statements in the general document that were given to us as far as like definitions. Like, for instance, what does resilient watershed management mean? What is resilient? I mean, there are words that have different definitions depending on how and where they're used. The other one that I noted is regenerative agricultural practices. You know, there's a lot of debate about regenerative, sustainable, you know, what do all those things mean? And it's important that we agree on the definition because it impacts the entire statement.
Thank you. Would it be helpful if a brief definition were included in the narrative then to establish a common baseline in the general plan?
I think that probably there are a number of statements or words that need to be clearly defined, so when they appear, everybody understands. They may or not agree or disagree, but they understand what that word is referencing and a little deeper dive into what it means.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So since the general plan and the local area plans are the community's vision that then does get rolled out into the zoning code, which does have the mechanics by which we enforce that community vision, it does make sense. One of the purposes of the general plan is to establish a common baseline so that everybody reading it understands how it's reflected in the zoning ordinance. So what we could do then is to add text that explains the definition of what we intend in there. It could be a different sentence, or it could be resilient by which we mean, something like that. So I'm going to add that to the list then. It would also be extremely helpful, Sharon, or any committee member, to send us a list of the words that that trigger that red flag that would need clarification, so we can make sure that we don't miss any of those. That would be very helpful. Okay, and then we had Margot first, and then moving to Denise, and we'll go online. We'll have Denise and Kyle.
Under general plan issues, there's a section for water resources. I suggest adding a section for cumulative effects, and this would cover large and continual water demand, especially for discretionary activity requiring county approval. Under agricultural economy, I suggest adding the topic of livable wage. And the suggested action would be to develop and test models of sustainable agriculture that provide livable wages.
Say that one more time.
The whole second part?
When you say...
the suggested action?
Yeah, under agricultural economy. Just say it one more time.
Oh, okay. So I suggest adding under agricultural economy the topic of livable wage. And the suggested action is to develop and test models of sustainable agriculture that provide livable wages. And then I had a comment about the organization of laying out all the issues. But if this isn't the time, I'll hold my comment.
Could I hear that comment just so I know if this is the time?
This is the time?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. I'll hold it for now so we can cover the big stuff.
Okay. So I think I missed one. I got adding cumulative effects to groundwater management, and I think you suggested a goal with that.
Well, not a goal, but it was just like a qualifier or additional information. Yes, to add cumulative effects of large and continual water demand, especially for a discretionary activity requiring county approval.
Okay, I would reword that to county approved or discretionary use permits.
Okay.
Just for clarification. Okay. And then livable wage, those were in your email, right?
Yeah.
Excellent, okay. Any further input, comment, questions from committee members here?
On this?
Sharon, go ahead.
Okay, so there are a couple of things. I mentioned the definition, but like under climate adaptation, there a number of these things roll over or overlay with agricultural resources and production. And so you had mentioned earlier that you have, what did you call them? Stakeholder focus groups. And I think that it would be good, and actually you mentioned it to me already, Maria, that you're going to have one for ag, because there's in the climate adaptation, water resources, and then agriculture resources, and in housing, there's all overlays into agriculture. Under water resources, ground management, when it has a list of sustainable plans, there are already existing sustainable plans for water and groundwater management, as well as recharge and quality and water supply. A lot of those things are already required of folks that are farming to report to the state. So a lot of those things are already in place. They don't need to be reinvented. So I think we want to take advantage of things that are already there. Under agricultural land preservation. You know, what does agricultural soils mean? You know, you can't have farming without soil, but I know it's not as simple as that. I have a question about the right to farm. I noticed it was mentioned earlier. I'd like to know more about any ideas for amending or changing that. You already covered the Williamson Act very completely. Under the range of agricultural operations, it says small and specialty. I'm looking for people that have, I don't know what small means, but, you know, pear orchards, walnut orchards, grapes, hay, cattle. Where does that fit in this list? You have wineries and distilleries, cannabis operation, and local food processing. So those I understand, but I'm not sure where the others fit.
The range of
the list that I was
agricultural
just giving you,
operations.
that I don't know that they would qualify as small agricultural operations, although everything we do in Lake County is small compared to other places.
Right.
So I don't know, you know, so I don't know. Small is relative. What does that mean? Does that include everybody? Does that include people that are 50 acres or less, or, you know, what does that mean? And just a question on the agricultural economy, what does livable wage mean? There's certainly years where some of the farmers don't have a livable wage. They don't make any money. They lose money. So we'd love to have a livable wage.
Right.
So those are just some questions, just for clarification, so that.
So possibly small ag operations and specialty ag need further clarification so that we understand what type of ag and what size we're talking about.
Yeah, if that's going to be something that needs to be talked about and defined, yes, I think it needs to be fine. In climate adaptations, there are a lot of things that are already being done in ag, because first of all, it's smart business. Second of all, some of it is required by state government and federal government to make reports on these different things. So I just want to have the conversation of how they all fold together.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
Thank you.
I like the idea of the small stakeholder group to address some of these things, because they all overlay. A lot of those things overlay together.
Thank you. I'm going back to my list. Go ahead, Denise Rushing in Zoom room, and then
All
we'll
right.
move to Kyle and then to Bill.
Yeah, first of all, just to comment on a couple of things that have come up, I do think it's appropriate to have a glossary or some definitions, especially for these terms that we tend to use, whether it's sustainable, resilient, small. I do think the state of California has some definitions for ag, and almost all Lake County farms fall under small or medium agriculture under the state definition, so we could just rely on those. But in any case, I do think a glossary might be appropriate rather than trying to define things in every single paragraph that we write. I also agree with Betsy that this issue of institutional memory in important documents has come up again and again. I realized working on this process that things can disappear from the county website, and the new documents need to either be recreated or we have to go into the Wayback Machine to try to find old links, and some of them don't work. So it's important to have that institutional memory in those documents because they exist, not because they're right anymore, but because they were actually, there was a lot of work done in creating them, and that some of the legwork we don't have to redo. There's also, it also points out the importance of community support that's required for the planning activities that each small community might do. And that includes things like places to gather, you know, where the community meetings are held and that sort of thing. So those are just some comments on the issues that have come up. I do have one or two questions and then some other comments on the actual document itself. My first question is, and it has to do with this idea of overlapping climate change adaptation with some of the other elements. I agree that there's a lot of overlap. And my question is it possible to include the climate change adaptation element, or that section, and also make sure that those policies that are specific to agriculture or to water resources are in those sections as well? Is it possible to sort of, I don't want to duplicate, but I do want, when a planner is looking at agriculture or is looking at water resources, that they have in front of them all of those policies, whether they also help on climate or not. So my question is it possible to include them in both places, or do we really have to have folks look in two places to find everything? So you don't have to answer me today, but I'm concerned that things that are listed under climate might be overlooked in the other elements. So the other question is under health and safety. In the community, there seems to be a lot of concern about preserving and creating evacuation routes, designing future growth with that in mind. A lot of concern about evacuation plans, internet access, that people are trying to get information on what's actually happening so they know whether they have to leave or go or stay or whatever. It's really important that those communication issues are addressed. So my question is, we mentioned lack of redundant communication facilities in there. What does that mean? Is it for emergency communications among first responders? Is it public information communication? Can we get a little more specific on what we mean by that, lack of redundant communication facilities? Okay, so, and then just, is it okay to just go through my comments real fast? I'll include them in an email so I don't have to,
I want to make sure that if you have questions for today that they don't go unanswered, but go ahead and keep going. I'm scribbling.
Yeah, okay. So evacuation I've already brought up. It's very important that we have resilience centers and community meeting spaces for each local area, because this is how we're dealing with these environmental events. In addition to cooling centers in local areas, we obviously need warming centers in some places because it gets cold in the winter as well. And what we're seeing with climate disruption is we're seeing more extremes on both ends, right? We're seeing more cooling and we're seeing more heating. The extremes on the planet are getting greater, so we have to plan for both. I'll echo the comments that have been made on the rural North Shore lots, that we have a lot of substandard housing that's very close together, and it's very hard to harden that. If fire gets in there, then they're so close. So just having to deal with that in the planning process would be important. The county itself has some responsibility for vegetation management on its own properties, the levees, the county roads, the shoulders, et cetera. And so we should highlight that. And of course, we've already mentioned under some of these major events, there's floods, potential invasive species, et cetera, that we have to address under health and safety. Is it health and safety? Yeah. Okay, I think that's it for my comments. We have some need for underwater resources. We have some need for stormwater management, being proactive to identify and runoff sediment sources and fix them up closer to the source rather than spending all the time and money measuring them. And we also need to fix them, and the higher up in the watershed we go, the easier it is to fix. Let's see. I'll also reiterate that cumulative impacts of usage, both groundwater, surface water, we need to make sure that in our policies we consider cumulative impact. And I think that's it for my comments.
Thank you. Just going back, one of your questions was, or a concern is if we might lose data if it's redundantly listed, we might miss something. And the goal of the general plan and the local area plans is actually to be very synchronized. So I think we'll take an approach of cross-referencing data so that people can sort of follow for more information without creating a 700-page general plan that's going to state everything 5 times wherever it's appropriate.
Right, right. And that would help to have a good glossary as well, so we don't have to put it in the narrative, what something means.
Excellent. Thank you. We'll move on. We missed Paul. We'll get back to you, Paul, in just a minute. We're going to go over to Kyle. Go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to look at, one of the areas that I was most concerned about is if, we're talking about all these different resources, if and when it would be appropriate to include tribal cultural resources and their protection. Living in Lake County, as we talked about, being here for thousands of years, thousands of people. There's hundreds of village sites, burial sites, spiritual sites throughout the county, and just ensuring, that there are laws, but oftentimes they're not very well known within the public or even during development, and ensuring that tribal cultural resources are protected and preserved. And this also could, encompass in different aspects of not just development, but even during wildfire disasters where possible sites or artifacts can be exposed to after a wildfire or after a flood. And so I think just talking about possibly, if that could be something that would be included in here to, as far as not just the natural resources, and the water resources, but also being in an area where there was such a high need of continues to be a lot of activity and, and uncovering tribal artifacts and sites, maybe looking at ways to protect those and codifying that within a general plan, I think would be very helpful for developers and also commissioners to be able to use as guidance on how to respond in certain situations. Or at different stages of planning.
Thank you. For those viewing or new to this process, one of the processes when we do discretionary permits is to assess the environmental impact of a proposed project on tribal cultural resources. It's been added in the CEQA checklist that we go through. And so that's a great idea to actually cover that in our general plan. If I can just zoom in before we move on to Paul, if I could just zoom in and do another time check. We said we'd get you out of here at 3:30, so I want us to sort of contextualize the purpose of the remaining discussion that we're going to have today. The focus of talking about the key issues is to also identify or gauge the committee's interest and the public's interest on those key issues so that they can be translated into our second survey for our second series of community workshops. This next survey is going to be a whopper compared to what we did the first time, which was like a 1 or 2 pager. This one is where we're going to really drill down and get additional information in those key issues and how people want to see them addressed in the future. So your input is great. I think that we're either going to schedule a second meeting to get down to our 240, the 240 GPAC discussion and comments time thing that we were going to do, which talks about how would you like to see these policies instituted. And so in the case of Kyle's input, that's where we're going to be looking for input on how would you like to see goals, policies, how would you like to see it reflected in the general plan so that we are accomplishing this key issue and making sure we're addressing it appropriately. And so with that said, we're going to go back to Paul, and I think we'll have a little time to make sure we have public input. I don't think anybody's using this room right after 3:30, so we may have some time. Want to make sure that everybody is heard today. Go ahead, Paul.
Sure. This is under health and safety, and the bullet that said the lack of redundant communications, and maybe we can utilize that bullet to address the hardening and redundant communication infrastructure needs, especially our cell towers that go down during emergencies. So since we don't have many landlines left, those cell phone infrastructure, when they go down, especially with power failures or trees down or whatever it is, really affects the ability to evacuate and or keep the public informed.
Do you think that redundant could also imply interoperability, like the effective communications of all our first responders and
I think
any?
we're pretty good,
good?
interoperability-wise, at tying frequencies together. I don't think that's as big of an issue as the hardening of the towers in a global sense.
Great.
Emergency communications between frequencies is not something we're lacking a whole lot of right now, but when we have a cell tower go down and half the community doesn't know what's going on just because that communication system's down, that's a huge thing.
By hardening, are you thinking, and we can drill down at this also as we go forward, but we'll want to make sure we're clarifying, are we addressing that by requiring generator backups, or are there other issues that we need to take a look at?
So every tower site should have the 500-foot clearance maintained around it, a defensible space clearance. In addition to what they have now is a 3-day backup of power, should be 7. Because our PSPSs don't last for 3 days, or a snow event, which happens up on Cobb, is not a 3-day event, and then the generator fails at the communication site, and then you lose all that making contact with the residents up there. So
Thank you.
I think increase that to 7 days, and then the 500-foot defensible space. And maybe something for the planning commission, if we have site development, those power lines are underground to the site. And that we wouldn't have issues with a lot of the sites if we did have that.
Thank you. Prioritization of undergrounding could definitely be included, in addition to the undergrounding that they're currently doing right now. Yeah.
Is solar recharging a possibility on? I know our siren towers, are all solar powered.
So that could be in the hardening process.
Yeah.
It just depends on if that solar panel is covered with snow, or we have cloud cover that doesn't regenerate that power system. And then we have night needs when they don't have solar. So
yeah, I was thinking of trickle power that,
Yeah, cell tower needs usually a generator powered by propane.
Yeah.
And so they have 3 days and should have more.
Thank you. We're going to finish up with Betsy, and then we're going to move to public. Go ahead, Betsy.
Thank you. And Chief Duncan, I appreciate your perspective on this, but I have to say that there is and you did mention those people who don't have the ability to get information over the internet. There is still a population that does not have any capacity for technology to be notified and assistance to help them to evacuate. We have discussed the possibility of creating resilience centers. Many of them would be located with the senior centers. I would like to urge the consideration of satellite telephone systems for those purposes, where the resilience centers would have satellite phone systems connecting up to our emergency operations center, because that cannot be disrupted, whether it's snow on the solar panel or lack of propane or whatever it is. We need those resilience centers, and we need them to be serving that population that doesn't have technology or doesn't have the ability to use it. And many of those folks who have that condition, that lifestyle condition, cannot purchase generators for themselves. They cannot operate generators. There's a gap there. There may be only 5,000 or 10,000 people, but those people are in the communities of extreme vulnerability. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no further committee input, we're going to move to Mr. Waite, who has been waiting very patiently. So we'll go to him first on public. Go ahead, Mr. Waite.
Can you hear me now? There you go. First of all, that list of stuff from Betsy, I never got a copy of that, and I don't know, being on the general mailing list, whether we were supposed to. I got the notice about the meeting, but I didn't get some of these other emails input that everybody else is talking about. And most everything that Math talked about in their meetings has already been incorporated in, and I think, and the stuff that was in our letter and everything in the priorities of South County have been pretty well addressed by everybody collectively. Some of these issues seem to be very fine detailed, and I'm more of a generalizer, and I think that sometimes generalization opens up further doors for future studies. But the other thing I want to talk about, Paul, where you brought up about the cell towers and stuff like that as well. And I remember that from being on the board of directors for Hidden Valley with the Valley Fire. When that Valley Fire came through CSD, likewise, our water company, all our water comes from wells, and obviously the wells were all shut down because the electrical lines and everything burned. But if the fire goes through there like it went through Hidden Valley, whether you got generators there or not, those generators are going to explode, and the fire is going to take those out. So I'm not sure that that's really going to become. I think you got a good point. I think some of the key issues, transportation and evacuation and water, et cetera. Hidden Valley, one of the reasons we had some issues up there is because the wells were and the pumps were pumped dry. Therefore, our towers were pumped dry. Therefore, the fire department had no water to fight the fires. That did become an issue. And so all they could do is just what they could get out of the lake and so on. So there's a lot of this that you can refine down, and I think the county and their general plan is doing a good job of breaking it down and reviewing it. Just the idea that it's being brought up and discussed is information enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Waite. A lot of the correspondence has been mostly just sent to the GPAC committee, but going forward in future meetings, we're going to make sure that these comments, if they're received before we have to post, which is no less than 72 hours prior to a meeting, that it will all be up and available on our webpage, on the board and commission's webpage of the lakecountyca.gov, so that everybody will be looking at the same items. Thank you very much. Is there any other public input in Zoom? We've been working a little bit offline to sort of set a possible date and time for a third meeting, where I really want us to focus on the discussion questions that we're clearly not going to get to today. And in order to prepare for that, staff will develop a list of the comments, edits, modifications, all the things that came up today that gained consensus of the committee, and that will also be distributed. So ahead of time, you'll have a refresher, and we'll start on discussion questions then with that meeting. Is there any further public input in Zoom? Michelle? Nope. Mark, did you have any parting comments before you leave? Come on. You're not known to be silent.
Is it proper, I mean, is it something that this would take in? I don't see tourism mentioned at all. Is that anything that would be area plan priority?
Quite possibly. It's essential to our economic development.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I just didn't see anything in here. In fact, just so you know, the last few days, because we've got a couple of vacuums, Laura Samuel leaving.
Oh, please, thank you.
Laurel Samuel's leaving the chamber, and if you haven't heard, Helena Welsh is leaving the Wine Association and moving to Monterey with her family. So there have been a number of discussions about maybe a refresh in some of those areas, and we were talking to the county also about, they're getting their thoughts on how we can promote more tourism. Because tourism, if you look at all the businesses in Lake County, probably 90% of them rely on, to keep them, to put them over the top, to really make them thrive, rely on tourist dollars. And we've seen that through some of Visit Lake County's information that they've gathered from, you know, everything from credit card receipts to input from the wineries and everybody else. But so anyway, I just thought the one thing I wasn't really noticing in here was tourism.
So if you had a chance to make a bullet point list like this, listing out the different aspects of tourism that you think should be considered in a community visioning program, what sort of things would you want included?
Well, it's more about realigning your resources. For instance, I'm not sure the county really is the place where we want to try to solve some of these things, but it would sure to know that we've got the support and things like that. One of the things that we're discovering is you have so many silos. You've got Visit Lake County, you've got the Chamber, you've got the Wine Commission, you've got the Wine Association, and you've got the Wine Grape whatever, you've got, you know, all these. Should there be an umbrella over those, like a marketing umbrella, where all those different, there's like 5 or 6 different boards, right? 6 different boards can speak to and maybe get some help with in terms of aligning ourselves to where we're all moving in the same direction at the same speed. So, because some of these, you know, some groups are B2C, they're business to consumer, some are B2B, business to business, which is what the Chamber is. And we're just thinking that maybe now's a good time to refresh and think about how we want to rebrand, you know, move forward, because tourism will lift all of us up. And all the wineries right now are down. If you look at their stats or you talk to any of them, their wine tastings, people coming in from out of county and then shopping at our stores and eating at our restaurants and things like that, are down from this time last year. And so I'm not sure, once again, I'm not sure if this is a county thing or something that the commissions and the Chamber and all of that have to circle the wagons, but if there was an idea or a thought on how the area plan could speak to it, and maybe it, you know, of course, a lot of these things, I mean, if you do the things that you know, that we talk about in here, then perhaps then that the halo effect is that maybe more tourists begin to arrive. We didn't get any. We certainly didn't get any traction out of that NASA article. People, I mean, that really did hurt. And if you talk to some of the wineries, like I met with one winery this morning, and they had people who came and they canceled. They ended up leaving. They were planning to go out on the lake, but where they were on the lake was, you know, cyanotoxin and all that. And we all know, those of us that live here, we all know that that happens certain times of the year. It happened, like next week, we're supposed to have the hottest week to date, correct? And supposedly, you know, so we'll probably get some cyanobacteria popping up at that point too. We just got to be able to handle that publicity, negative publicity when it comes out. We need to have someone, we need to be able to respond to that. Angela DePalma-Dow did a wonderful article on that, so that was great. Now I'm rambling, but anyway, I just thought if there was any way we could reach outside of the county and I guess we do with Visit Lake County, so the money that county gives to those guys to help, but I don't know, just something to think about.
Thank you. So for those who are watching or attending remotely, this was public input from Mark Lips, the current or immediately past president of the Lakeport Rotary. Association, thank you. And I'm very glad that you're on our notification list. If it is amenable to the committee, we will take his comments also and integrate that into our overall list that'll come back. And so tomorrow morning at 2 o'clock, when you think about other things that you didn't mention today, as far as policies you'd like to see included, feel free to email me.
I will.
But we also will look forward to you joining us at that next meeting.
Okay, and thank you. You guys are doing a marvelous job. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
That was excellent input. I guess I assumed this was an initial list of key issues, because one of the ones I noticed was missing was economic development was not listed as a key issue. I assumed it was just
Economic development is an actual element, so yes, it is important, but it may not have been spoken about, and so that was one of the opportunities of today's meeting, is what is missing here. So we now have economic development on there.
Yeah,
Thank you.
big time.
And
Also, this list of key issues was, remember, developed out of the survey. So this is a direct reflection of what the community said the key issues were. And that's why we've put this list out for additions, subtractions, and, and clarifications.
Awesome. Okay, is there any further public input, either in the room or in the Zoom room? Anybody? Anybody? Bueller? Nope. Okay, so what we're going to do, go ahead, Julia.
Thank you.
Please state your name for the record.
Yeah, Julia Carrera, Upper Lake. First, I want to thank everyone. I think you're doing an exemplary job. Thank you. And particularly Maria, who without her guidance and leadership and basic general humor, we would not be getting where we're going so brilliantly. And with that said, I agree with what everybody's saying, and I really appreciate it, particularly Betsy's comments. I just wanted to, I had a question, and Mark's comments. I was going to suggest tourism. I think tourism is the backbone of our small communities economically, and we really do have to focus on that. My comments today on the key issues is under emergency preparedness, response, and recovery. I'd really like to see something about flooding. We have a big lake and it floods. We have a lot of tributaries and they flood. We have levees, and if they haven't flooded already, they're going to in climate change. There's different types of flooding. There's flooding because of lack of stormwater evaluation and systems that were in development and were developed, as Betsy talked about, along the North Shore, in the 50s, 40s, 30s. And there's a lot of flooding that occurs because there was no stormwater evaluation. Climate change, the water troughs, or whatever they call them now. Yes, atmospheric rivers, thank you. The deferred maintenance of flood structures, I got to tell you, that's significant on the North Shore. All of our flood structures have deferred maintenance of at least 30 years. And water containment failures, whether it's a pool, water storage, small ponds. I'd really like to see in health and safety flooding for our county in particular, because it is something we all face on a daily basis. And I also wanted to bring up a question about, and it may be, Maria, it's more appropriate for LAPAC, but what I emailed you about the Highway 20 designation of a scenic highway and the requirements of those in regards to building and planning that don't seem to be here, which are the preservation of the scenic corridor. And that is required, as I showed you. So is that more appropriate at LAPAC? I wanted to bring mention to it here because it's not in the general plan area anywhere that I saw, and we don't have a corridor preservation in place, which is required. So that's a particular thing I'd be very interested if I have applied for LAPAC, if in fact I get appointed, to really look at.
I appreciate that. I had been handling that inquiry as a matter disconnected from this process, but now that it's been brought up, I think it's a good thing that we should just add it in there. That will give us the time before the next meeting for me to research and get answers to your questions and be better prepared.
And roads in general, we have a lot
Pretty
of.
darn general. You're going to have to.
Yeah.
What part of roads? Conditions of roads?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the abandonment of maintaining of those conditions of roads. Thank you.
Thank you. Any public input left? If not, we're going to talk about, one moment, Margot, we're going to talk about a couple options for our next meeting. Go ahead, Margot.
So here's a question. So I have some additional public comments. I don't know if process-wise you want to get consensus from GPAC now on these public comments on issues, or if you want to just say, hey, since we have to have another meeting on issues, I can email these to you and then they can be distributed to GPAC and we can take it from there.
I think in order to do it most correctly, accurately, if you do have a public comment that was submitted to you, if you wouldn't mind forwarding that to me, we're going to gather this all up into a list and we're going to work through it at our next meeting.
Very good. Thank you.
If that works. Thanks. Okay, so I think we have a couple options. The best date that we have so far to maximize the presence of staff is July 15th. That's a Monday. Starting at 1 p.m. and going till 3. Today's meeting has taught me that we really need time to talk and think. If July 15th, that Monday from 1 to 3 works for you committee members in the Zoom, please raise your hand. And I'll be looking for nods and hands raised from our committee here. Excellent. Did you want to talk or did you not?
Question.
Oh, go ahead.
That's a COTF meeting date.
That's a COTF. Wait. We
the
just
15th?
did our COTF.
Because we're meeting on the 1st.
Is anybody available the 15th from 3 to 5? That would definitely not conflict. Task force leaves me at 2:30 at work. Ends up from 3 to 5, Monday, July 15th. Another hybrid meeting, of course. 1, 2, 3.
I have risk reduction authority. I don't know if that's a.
Apparently my calendar is not well updated. Okay, what's after the 15th? And we'll hold on to the 15th from 3 to 5 just in case and gauge the most people we can get, the most committee members. I'm fine with that. Okay, how about July 19th? That is that Friday. Did we have a time on those? I'm getting clear. What the heck? Friday would be earlier because weddings happen in the afternoon. So it could be 9 to 11 or 10 to noon. This would be Friday, July 19th. Let's go 9 to 11. Consensus on 9 to 11, July 19th. Weston, do you have any availability July 19th, 9 to 11? Excellent, thank you. Denise, give you a second to check.
No.
No, okay.
The 15th is good. The 19th could be a little rough.
That's Weston? Okay.
Yep.
Why don't you send out
doodle poll?
Yeah. Or we'll be here all afternoon. Trying to do it to you.
We will do that. We will gather our options and send out a few different options, and then we will see which one we can get the most committee members present, and we will go with that one. Probably within the next 3 weeks, maybe 4. Okay. Awesome. Then I think that completes our agenda. I appreciate everybody's attention and diligence and really speaking up. Thank you so much for everyone who is attending in the Zoom room and the public here and in Zoom. We're going to go ahead and adjourn our meeting today, and we will send out the notification through our email blast of our next GPAC meeting. Thank you. 3:40. Well done, everybody. Uh-oh.
I just have one general question. We want to get back to the areas that we're representing. Do you want us to, just on our own kind of overview, to who we're representing, what's going on, or do you have any statement or anything that you want to make sure that we